well, you have to recognize the influence of the social media at the moment. Social media have become a big deal, and they have, I mean, there are influencers now
Hmm.
that they are either opposed to the president or yes men for the president, and they have the ability to say all kinds of things, and people listen to them in their own echo chambers and create a whole system of groups, and that influences the lawmakers because they're afraid at the same time of their own reputation.
Okay. If you think about it, yes, there's social media which creates echo chambers. But
Yes,
if you go back and look at the history of the United States and probably many countries long before that, there was always multiple sources of information. The newspapers, it, the Federalist Papers, for example, when there was a question about whether, in fact, we were going to have a constitution or not, a group of lawmakers uh, started buying local newspapers so they could
yes.
put into the paper how wonderful a constitution would be. And oh, by the way, on the other side, the Jeffersonians were doing the same damn thing on the other side. It's always been that way.
And I was thinking about while you were talking about, I was thinking about how uh, Ford bought the newspaper for himself, and so that he could propagate his own extremist views,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people read those.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I was also thinking about how much effort Lincoln had to put in to twist the arms of legislatures to vote for abolition of, I don't know whether it's called abolition of slavery. I forgot what the name of the act was.
Emancipation.
Emancipation, thank you. So that, if you read that, how much he had to go through.
Yeah,
Always
that's
been the case.
That's why what I'm also actually trying to say the same thing. Yes, it is always the case.
yeah.
So what is different?
Franklin Rose, as I'm sure you both know, Franklin Roosevelt wanted to expand the Supreme Court,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
uh, so he would have more control on many things.
Yes.
Uh, Fortunately, that didn't happen. Um,
By the way, I cannot remember when, but I think the Supreme Court was expanded from 5 to 9 at one point.
I'm not aware that it's possible.
I,
I never
I'm
I
reasonably
never
sure, but
researched.
I'm not positive. So it's been done, and
Well, you're
I think
saying it's been done. You don't know that for sure.
right,
You're assuming.
but I believe I read it somewhere. It's not was not a major deal when I was reading it at the time. But we one of the things that makes our country good is the it used to be when I was in school, politics was the art of the possible. You could talk about whatever you wanted, but ultimately you tried to figure out what is the best I can do and what will it cost me. And then you talk to other people who are doing the same calculation, and at some point you come up with something. Franklin Roosevelt, we were talking about him a moment ago. Franklin Roosevelt put in a whole bunch of, Chuck, you'll call them leftist ideas in response to the Depression. And they were rather amazing, but it turns out that a number of them explicitly kept African Americans from participating. Why? Because the only way that Roosevelt could get the votes of the Southern Democrats was to keep the African American population second class. And, you do what you have to do, and hopefully at some point in the future, you can correct the problem. And I think we've lost that in our Congress today.
Do you think they've lost that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I have to think about that. I'm not sure I agree with that.
The
So
last thing I can think of that was cross party lines in a massive way was the bill that said you will release all of the Epstein files. And even Trump signed that bill and then ignored it.
yeah, that's a good example actually. Yes. So that
I don't
so that
think
the
I don't think
party
the
will.
I don't think the investigation of the Epstein files is totally over.
Only because there's a bunch of people out there screaming and yelling and reminding all the other people who really don't care. Let's be perfectly honest. Most of the population really doesn't care, but they get a little pissed by somebody getting away with something that they couldn't get away with.
Well, that's true in so many different ways.
True. But other than that, I can't think of another situation where the Congress got together as a group and said, "Okay, let's do X." And whatever it took, whatever horse trading went on behind the scenes, I don't know. But they managed to make it happen.
But at the same time, once the files were released, they released. They did not release everything. What and so a lot of files have the names redacted. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why there are a lot of people who are saying that this was a waste of time and they should go back and open up everything. So it is, as Chuck said, it is still simmering there to kind of one of these days. I don't know what is going to happen with that. Is it still going to be explored? People are going to keep going after it, although it may have no meaning for general public, but it does have meaning throughout the world. Actually, in fact, because it's again a reflection of that maybe less than 1% of the population who are who were the movers and shakers, and how come they got Epstein in and was running the show for all of these governments, individuals, corporations, and I can't even fathom that.
I'll
Well,
give you a conspiracy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's so many situations that occur that there seems to always be somebody, some people still interested. I mean, I still hear stories occasionally about JFK's assassination. Even going back to once in a while, you might even hear something, some new theory about Lincoln's assassination. And now this SPLC issue is talking about stuff that happened in 2017, maybe. I can't remember exactly what
That
year.
sounds about right. Yeah.
Whatever the day of Charlottesville occurred, and what really was going on at that time. And so it's as long as there's a kernel of possibilities, I think people are always going to be poking around. Somebody is.
Yeah. Actually, just for the audience of two, my wife and Oman's wife, who were taking notes about all the things we said wrong. Um, the Southern Poverty Conference is being investigated because it turns out that they paid a fair amount of money to leaders of various white supremacist groups in return for those leaders giving them inside information about what was happening. And I could, as I don't think I ever contributed, I may have, I'm not sure, to these things, and I might get a little pissed about the idea that you're giving some big leader a whole bunch of money until you think about law enforcement, FBI, local, state, whatever, buys informants. In some cases with cash, in some cases with other benefits. They put their own people in undercover. It's a tool, good, bad, or indifferent, but it's a tool that is the only way to get at certain kinds of information while it's still relevant.
Okay,
So, yeah,
SPLC,
yeah.
you're correct in some aspects of that, but
Hmm.
that's what they're trying to claim, that they did this to get information.
Yeah.
The other side of the coin is that's not true. They were
Uh,
doing that because they want to incite the riots that occurred. So there's two different stories here,
uh,
and so the investigation is going to have to prove, or see if they can prove, what side is really what really is the truth.
I have seen no evidence, and I'm not saying that you haven't, but I haven't seen any evidence that the that this particular group was trying to create riots. And if they were trying to create riots, it's kind of a lousy way to do it by letting law enforcement know, hey, this group's going to be down trashing this area or attacking some group, so the law enforcement's in a position to stop it. So it doesn't, to me at least, it doesn't pass the smell test.
I
That's
have not heard
fine.
of that actually. That part. Go ahead, Chuck.
No, what are you going to say, Omanan? Ask.
I said I haven't. I didn't hear that they were inciting riots. I only heard the first part that they were explaining why they had contacted the leaders so that they would get the information, and that is all I heard, but not the other part.
Yeah, well, again, that's, as I just finished saying to
Mm.
Bob, that's SPLC's explanation, that we
Yeah.
were just trying to get information. Maybe that's what it is. Hopefully, we can get to the truth. Uh, I'm not sure what my inclination is. I don't believe them. Uh, but again, maybe somebody can show me what the other side can prove.
Well, I think,
Well, you also
go
They're
ahead.
in a lot of trouble right now. SPLC.
They're in trouble. What they're being investigated for is, did they fundraise on a fraudulent basis? The fraudulent basis being they took some of that money, not all, but some of that money, and they gave it to the leaders of some white nationalist organizations. And in return, they got information which, in some cases, they passed on to law enforcement. I don't know if they did in all cases, but certainly in some cases they did.
I haven't heard that, Bob. I
Okay.
I haven't heard that they pass information to law enforcement. That's news to me, and if you heard it, then
Well,
I
that's a
I
factual
I
thing that can be tested, that we can actually determine. And I would imagine, as part of the suit, as part of the defense against the suit, the SPLC would in fact contact, would in fact depose organizations that they pass this information on to. So there is a way of proving at least that at some point they did do that. Whether in fact
the
they,
only way,
yeah.
I don't know how. I'm not sure how they're actually going to prove that. They're going to take somebody's word against somebody else's word until they can somehow or other see who's really telling the truth.
Well,
I mean, it just, as with most things.
well, unfortunately, there's very little that we can be sure of. I'm not 100% sure that on every single day the sun will come up in the east. So, yeah, there are people who can object to pretty much anything. But I think if I were doing the defense, I would depose the FBI, I would depose state cops, et cetera, and say, did you get this information from us at
I'm
this
sure
time?
that's going to happen. I
Okay.
would think that's going to happen.
If they achieve that, would you accept the fact that at least in some cases that the SPLC was giving the money for this laudable, for lack of a better term, uh, reason, as opposed to I want to have a whole bunch of my family and my church mates, etc., killed off so that I can complain about the white supremacists. I Again, the smell test. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I can tell you that when my brother, who's a lot younger than I am, used to march in the anti-Vietnam marches. Uh, he was 4F, so but he was doing it because he believed in it. And there would be these marches, a whole bunch of people marching down the street in Cambridge and holding their signs and doing their slogans. Everything was fine. And behind them were a few people who'd be going out trashing stuff. And what would happen is the marchers would get blamed for all the crap that was done behind them. And that could well be some of the stuff you're talking about.
Now, isn't that the in general law enforcement modus operandi is actually just like we had Whitey Bulger. He was working on both sides of the fence,
Yes.
and so and it's kind of a very difficult, very difficult case in that sense. That if they are working on the side of the law enforcement and paying money to informants, the question then is, I think the in my mind the question is, did they defraud the fundraising mechanism? That might be what is implied. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what they're being accused of. That's what the investigation is about. Now, the justification is what I'm talking about. That, if you just look at it and say, "Hey, you gave this money to this KKK leader," that's not what the donors signed up for. But if you say we gave it because the KKK leader gave us something of value that saved some lives, whatever. I'll give you another example. Try this one on for size. Bibi Netanyahu, for a number of years, helped facilitate passing money into Hamas.
Yes, yes.
The idea was they will not do anything bad because they'd be going against their own interest. Here's where the money's coming in. If they do something bad, then that money stops. Okay.
And they were also, just an interjection there, they were also supposed to oppose the other party of the Palestinians. That's why Hamas was being supported.
Yes. And then October 7th happened. Who would have thunk it? But up until that point, Netanyahu could well have said, yes, I did this, and you may not approve, but there were a few rockets, nothing more. There was nothing really bad going on. Again, October 7th happened, everything fell apart. But up to that point, no, I don't know. Before we came on air, we were talking a little bit about the war with Iran and what the hell is happening there, and what is the chances that it's going to be over anytime in our lifetime.
Well, Iran is still there, and God knows they say that they have closed down the Straits of Hormuz, and on the other hand, we hear the Straits of Hormuz, the ports of Iran have been blocked. So it's kind of controversial there, and they say that this morning they were saying the Iranian whatever their army is, they had invaded a ship, and they had occupied somebody's ship. And on the other hand, you hear from the U.S. that U.S. is bombarding they're blocking the Arabian Sea or something like that. They're not letting anybody go. So it's kind of a very confusing situation there at this time.
No, I agree. I'm, Chuck,
I was just going to say, if we let's back up for a few minutes. As far as, do you think what happened for a good reason to begin with? Are you convinced in your mind that at some point in time, Iran may in fact have these nuclear weapons and either use them or threaten to use them against other parts of the world, including the United States, as they called the U.S. the Great Satan, and Israel the Little Satan? And do you think they would not do anything, regardless whether it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Would you be willing to put your life on the line? Not so much your life or my life, as I would say, because frankly, the three of us have a limited time left in this earth. But we have other relatives that are younger than us who are going to be the ones that are going to be facing up to some of these things that if we don't solve them in some way, we may be spiritually haunted by it.
okay. But forget for the moment that 10 years ago, probably a little bit less than that, but 10 years ago, there was a situation in place where Iran had given up their highly enriched uranium, were enriching uranium for medical and power use. It was being monitored.
I have to interrupt you.
Sure.
Did you say they gave it up 10 years ago?
Yeah, they gave it to
uranium?
Russia. Yes. They transferred all of their highly, not all of it, but the highly, to Russia. That was part of the deal. The International Atomic Energy Commission was monitoring what they were doing in terms of enriching uranium, and it was being enriched to the point where it could be used for power and medical and other uses. And the United States said that wasn't good enough, and they scrapped the agreement. After that point, Iran started to enrich uranium at a much higher level. These are facts. I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I don't want them to be in a position where they can threaten other countries. Let's start with that. But Iran had so much money, so much cash, that if they really wanted a nuclear weapon, they could have gone to North Korea and gotten not only the weapon, but the ballistic technology to deliver it. So, yeah, they were working towards having a weapon. They felt it was the only way they could safeguard their security, in the same way as Israel has atomic weapons. Pakistan has atomic weapons. India has atomic weapons. It's become the only way to be confident that people are going to leave you alone is to have atomic weapons. So the fact that they were doing it under a controlled environment, we said, no, go away, we can do better. The net result was that we did not do better. And what happened was, and this is personal opinion, but there's an awful lot of people out there who are saying the same thing. We decided that because we got Maduro for free, it cost a couple of hundred Cubans, but nobody gives a damn about them. We got it for free. A couple of people were injured, and that was the extent of it. And now we are running Venezuela. Well, how do we do that? We worked a deal with the vice president. We said, we're going to get rid of this guy. You'll be president, and you'll do X, Y, and Z. She said, fine. Okay. I think Trump said, hey, this works perfectly. We can do the same damn thing in Iran. And they wiped out, because they couldn't kidnap him, they wiped out the leadership of Iran, and possibly they wiped out the person they were going to put up to be supreme leader. In any case, there's no longer any individual that can do what's necessary, and everyone who's up at top hates our guts. And we did, because we thought it was going to be easy, we didn't plan. We didn't take the reason why Biden, Obama, no, it wasn't Eisenhower. That wasn't his problem. Johnson didn't go after. No, this was before the revolution. Since the revolution, the reason why American presidents didn't go after Iran was that all Iran has to do is close the Straits of Hormuz, and the whole goddamn world hates our guts. We, the United States, because we caused the problem. And when Trump said, I'm going to close everything, I'm going to bomb them, and they're going to give up, he didn't bother to check and say, oh, what about the Strait of Hormuz? All they have to do is mine it. Oh, we destroyed their navy. You didn't destroy the mine layers. Oh, our allies around Iran, we didn't bother to protect them. We didn't bother to tell them, hey, we're about to do this, protect yourself. We moved American troops into forward positions without hard protection. And then when Iran found out where they were, they bombed them. And these guys had no protection, no warning, no nothing. It was a case of hubris and bad planning. And you and I and Amon and our kids and our possibly grandchildren are going to be dealing with that. Okay, nice speech. Your turn.
Let Chuck speak, and I can say something else.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Almanan.
No, what I was going to say is, yes, I agree that you do not want a nuclear nation there, but at the same time, they are signatories of the International Atomic Energy Treaty, or whatever that is called, Anti-Proliferation Treaty. So that has to be respected, and there are inspectors that are supposed to be going in every now and then. But if that treaty holds, and if we give that chance, that means that things can work. But at the same time, if we don't respect that, then somebody went in and bombed everything. Now, the unfortunate thing is, although this thing has been bombed, the whole stuff is still buried underground. That is still available. And so that means now the danger is that they can still access it and create something as a revenge. And then what are we going to do? That's one. The second part is Iran has been fighting the Western powers for a long, long time. Since the time of the Greeks, the Romans, you name it. And then after the mandates, World War II, you have the Germans came in, then the U.S., the Axis powers wanted their way in. The Allies then somehow wiggled themselves in, and Russia and Allied forces took over and made the Razat, whatever the Pahlavi, the power to collaborate, or force them to collaborate, and then we suddenly again did a few more acts, and we have a continued problem. And then, of course, the catastrophic thing was the hostages. That was something, and I thought at that time, the United States had a justified role to go do something. And they tried during Carter's time, and that went into disaster. And they didn't then come out right. But then I had great hopes with Reagan. But then he struck a deal. And which went entirely different ways. So I don't know. It's what the solution is going to be, or whether there will be ever a solution to this problem unless it is handled appropriately. And I don't know what that way is, given that we have muddied the water so much.
I, going back on one thing you said, I don't believe the intent is to leave Iran without doing something about supposedly this uranium they have buried elsewhere. The intent is part of that they're going to get that uranium removed.
Why?
The other aspect is that now I lost track of what I was going to say.
Sorry, my fault. I have a question.
Anyway,
Why would
sure.
Iran get rid of the uranium this time? The last time they did get rid of
They're
it.
not going to. They're not going to get rid of it. We're going to take it.
Have you had
And
any
I
idea
just
how
thought-
difficult it is to take a country of 90 million people and make them do exactly what you want, even though it's against their obvious interest?
I don't think those 90 million people. I don't think the leadership of Iran, hopefully, has the support of the majority of those people. They keep them. They don't allow them to have guns or all these other restrictions they have. So they're somewhat defenseless. But one of the things I wanted to go back on when I was speaking, and you also, Bob, is that one major difference I see with Iran versus countries like North Korea, China, Russia, and these other countries, India and so forth, that have nuclear weapons. You don't hear them going around, I don't hear it, them going around threatening other countries of any sort. And so I know you, Bob, have said many times that one thing you don't like is a bully. And in my mind, Iran is that exactly what that is. They're bullies. The leadership is anyways. They want to hang these 8 women. And supposedly Trump got them to stop from doing that. But their belief, from what I understand, is that when they die, and if they can bring it upon themselves sooner, then they're going to be taken care of with a great, whatever they call the great
harem
hereafter. And so they have that in their minds to look forward to. And what they've done to their people over the years and continue to do is just outrageous. I read the other day, prior to what they were talking about, the execution of these 8 women, that they were also going to be raped before they got hung, so that they will be, once they go to the great wherever, they will be undesirable to who's ever up there in that great place. I haven't heard anything on any news factors other than the fact that they were not hung. I'm curious whether or not they were raped also. Was that done? Did they prevent that from happening? But I think that my point is that Iran is a big bully, and they want to push themselves around. They want to take control of things, and they have a limitation on how to do that. But they have this big nuclear issue that they can hang over the heads of the rest of the world.
I agree with you. I have a point to make on that, but I want to point out to you that in the Jim Crow era, in the American South.
What era?
Jim Crow.
I'm sorry, what?
When the laws in the Deep South, the Confederate South, were such that African Americans were at best second-class citizens. They could be raped, they could be hung, they were totally isolated from the rest of society, except when the rest of society wanted them to do something, at which point they had to do it. So the fact that Iran does horrible, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing that Iran does horrible things. I don't necessarily understand why these things are acceptable, but they are. I don't agree with them. But I will ask you another question. Trump went in and said, I can bomb the Iranians so that they will give up. It didn't work. As of right now, Iran is in a much better geopolitical position than they were before. When you look at the possible ways for this to end, other than us going in with 50, 100,000 troops and fighting a war with 90 million people, we saw how that worked in Iraq. There is no way to force them to give up the uranium and force them to do X, Y, and Z. You can negotiate. You can say, if you do this, I'll do that. But saying, if you don't do what I told you, I'm going to bomb you, we did. It didn't work.
One thing that you're missing, I think, is that I think part of the strategy is economically to sink them economically, and that seems to be a direction that is happening. Nobody knows when you get involved in a situation exactly how all this is going to unfold.
Agreed.
You might have an encounter with a neighbor, and you think you can say this or that to that neighbor, but this neighbor has other ideas, and all of a sudden your plan has to change because it's not what you're talking about is not going to work.
Agreed.
Couple of points I was going to make actually about this. One is that the Chuck's point about economic pressure. So no matter how much economic pressure is placed because of the blockade of the ports, you still have the Caspian Sea available for Russians to transfer anything they like. And that includes Russia, that includes China. That's one. The number two thing is that no matter how much evil we think or we thought that the regime was or is in Iran doing all kinds of atrocities on people, what has happened is the first attack itself killed off their Pope, the Pope of the Shia Muslims. So that killing of the Pope of Shia Muslims has in fact united all the population in the country against the invader, no matter what the difference. And it has also raised an opinion about the Shia Pope throughout the world. So that's a one major thing that has happened. Because of that removal of that Pope, the second in command, they have become much more radicalized. And I'm worried that that may be much difficult group to negotiate with, although we are trying to do the right thing. That's my take on it.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand quite what you were saying in reference to you were talking about the people in Iran.
Yes. What I'm saying is in Iran, the Pope of the Iranians was the Ayatollah.
Okay, the hope of Iranians.
No, not Pope.
P-O-P-E.
Remember, Catholics have a Pope.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Now you kill off the Pope. What do you think the Catholics are going to do? Are they going to sit silent, or they're going to raise voices? That is what has happened in Iran. The Pope of the Shia people was Khomeini. So you kill that fellow, no matter how much they hated him. The people who hated him and people who loved him both are united. That's the problem.
But you think, so you're saying that you think the majority of people that in Iran are supportive are supporting the Iranian government.
At this time. At this time,
No, I just
although I agree, there are people in there where I have heard them talk. People in Iran, they were opposed to the regime because their ideology was very strict. They didn't like it.
yeah,
But because the Pope has been eliminated, so it becomes a problem.
yeah, I choose to believe that the majority of Iranians are not in favor of the leadership that's there right now, and was not in favor of the previous leadership that's been killed off. But
Was not, I agree with you, was not, but what they are, when I hear the Iranian commentators, I hear them say it's an invasion on Iran, so we are united. So that's the problem.
yeah,
And the killing of the Ayatollah has become a problem.
yeah,
You can look at it from another point of view. Think of it in the United States in 1941, there was a massive, massive movement supporting Nazi Germany in the war. There were political leaders, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk about some of the specifics at another time. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, suddenly all of this stuff went away. We're Americans, you came after us, we're going after you. And I think that's the basis that Obanon is talking about.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the point there.
what did we do with the Japanese people that were still here in this country? For a lot of them,
We rounded them up.
We put them in
Yes.
minor concentration camps of some sort.
It wasn't as bad as Germany, but it was similar.
I know, that's why I just for trying to be stating something quickly.
But
I wasn't trying to say it was a concentration camp.
It was.
But at the same time, the curious point there is the Germans who were organizing camps, Nazi camps. They were not put in concentration camps. Only the Japanese were, which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
Because you could, most likely, in my mind, most likely because you could identify them much easier. You could identify a German versus an Italian.
But
I do want to go back briefly on what Bob said earlier about the what was going on in the South. Was that the only place in the world that was happening?
No.
Right.
But we are the enlightened. We are the golden city on the hill. It was a reference to Jerusalem, but that's neither here nor there. And we were treating our population, a significant portion of our population, like crap. I want to use another word, but I've been told I can't. So who are we to say that Iran is such a horrible group? They have their own beliefs. Whether I agree with them or not is immaterial. They have their own beliefs, and in large measure, the population accepts it. Maybe not to the same extreme, but they accept it.
Well, if they didn't want to go around, threatening the rest of the world,
like
particularly
North
the
Korea,
United States and Israel, then it wouldn't be such a big issue.
North Korea threatens the rest of the world. North Korea sends missiles towards Hawaii. North Korea sends missiles towards Japan. North Korea says bad things. The American president says, I'm going to destroy this civilization forever. Do you think that is justification for Iran to now do whatever they damn well please?
Well, he gets carried away sometimes with how he classifies things.
By the way, do you think that in 20 years we're not going to see that quote whenever some country doesn't like America? They're going to say, this is what the Americans believe.
That's true. No different than this quotes by other people who have said things they shouldn't have said.
But just because somebody says the great Satan is immaterial, Iran has hated Israel for a long, long time, but you'll notice they didn't attack Israel. They didn't even
They
attack
didn't
Israel
say,
in 1948 when the
they,
whole Arab world was attacking. They didn't.
they didn't say they just hated the great Satan. They said they wanted to destroy the
Yeah.
great Satan
Oh,
as well as Israel.
and oh, by the way, the Americans are doing the same, saying the same kind of stuff. We have to recognize that there are some people who speak out of their rear end and then wonder why everybody holds their nose at them.
And that's on both sides.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But don't say that this one's bad because they did that, and yeah, we did it too, but that doesn't matter. It's immaterial.
I didn't say that. You did.
Oh, okay.
But the bottom line, I just wanted to summarize something. But the bottom line is that yes, something has to be done for the Iran question so that everybody in the area can live in peace, and Gulf of Hormuz is opened up so that the world is not going to suffer with the uh, per gallon gas with more than $4.
Forget we're going to pay $4 or $5 or $6 for gas. Forget that. In Asia, they ain't going to have any gas.
They don't have. That's
Right.
they don't have. This is the problem that the I forgot 30% or whatever percent LNG, liquid nitrogen, not nitrogen, liquefied gas
Right.
comes from those countries, and the oil comes out of those countries. So it has affected the world economy, not only the Asian countries. Asian countries have been immediately affected, but the whole world economy is in jeopardy. But that's why I'm saying they have to do something for this problem so that the whole area of Gulf will come back to normalcy and return to normal, because millions of people work in those Gulf countries. They are not from those countries. They are from other countries outside of Gulf. They come from European countries, Asian countries, other Arab countries, and their livelihood is in danger. And so is the comfortable life of all the rich Gulf nations.
And who's
And
going to
at
get
the same
blamed?
time, we are also jeopardizing our own Gulf traders
Yep.
who want our machinery and equipment and bombers.
And what's going to happen is some things have already happened. The world is going to be different, is different today than it was a year and a half ago, a year ago. For example, when we try to influence other countries without bombing them, one of the things we do is we do sanctions. And one of the sanctions we do is you can't use the SWIFT payment system, which is all in dollars. You can't use that. Therefore, you're being blockaded even though there's no ship there. Well, guess what? Now China has their own payment system, and the payment system is in yuan, which means that the next time Russia does something we don't like, they don't give a damn whether we say you can't use the SWIFT system. They weren't planning on using it anyway. The only way to influence them now is with a gun. So we are.
I read something recently, and I don't know for sure. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it made it sound like to me that idea that China is in jeopardy of being workable. They had 4, 5, 6 countries that were joining in or something like that. But there's a question of whether or not it's going to work in whatever way they had planned.
It was starting to work before the war, and now Iran, should they ever open up the straits, say if you want to buy our oil, you have to do it in Chinese currency.
Well,
So,
I haven't heard that. One
well,
thing I did
and
want
by
to
the way,
mention
India
earlier.
is part of that as well. So, a good proportion of the population of the world, it's the BRICS system, BRIC,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
BRICS or something.
BRIC,
Yeah.
BRIC.
Um, so that's was in existence before. It is now going to become much more significant. Western Europe is looking at it as well. America first may well be America all by ourselves.
I mean, that's what my whole thesis has been for a long time, that United States with its military power should go out there and be the world power and show that we are the world power. But that means once you are there, you got to be able to uh, push your weight around, not with bombs, but various ways. But you have the military power as the last resort. But but be that power. But what is I'm afraid what is happening at the end of this war, we might end up with, as Bob pointed out, multipolar world, which may not look good for the world economy, U.S. economy, and even for other countries who try to align themselves with different groups, which might really create a different world than what we are used to.
Right. And from our viewpoint, again, U.S., the rest of the world may see it differently.
Mm-hmm.
From our viewpoint, it's going to be worse. The value of the dollar is going down, which means that we can sell a lot of stuff, a lot of exports, because it's cheaper. The value of the dollar going down means when we buy something from outside of the United States, it's a whole bunch more expensive. So, as an individual, you and I and Chuck, our lives will become more expensive that way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Forget that a lot of jobs are going to go away because a whole bunch of countries, including our neighbors, don't want to come here. So tourism is hurting big time, big time. Uh, our exports aren't, we're not exporting a great deal more because A, we're having fights with people, and B, a lot of the stuff that we build here, the raw materials come from somewhere else, which are now more expensive. So the price break we got because our currency is down goes away because of everything that we had to buy from outside. So we're losing, losing, losing. And that's assuming that we get out of Iran without an Iraq kind of a 10-year environment or Taliban.
I want to get on to it. We only got about 6 or 7 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm just curious on your part, Bob, and you, Almanon, who are going to be who might be the candidates by the Democratic Party to run for president in a few years in 2028? Who's the person or people that you might think could be that candidate, or maybe a couple different people might be candidates?
I think I will let Bob talk about that. I do not think I have an opinion at the moment.
All right. The guy I want to be the candidate, who probably will not be, is Pete Buttigieg. That man is brilliant. And he has an understanding of how to deal with organizations and people. I don't think he'll be the candidate for obvious reasons. And that's really bad for America. I think
You're implying that because he's gay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And proud of it.
Who's not? So if he's not going to be the candidate that you wish it to be, Who do you think it's going to be?
I can tell you that, um, God, suddenly I can't remember her name. She ran for president against Trump recently. Um, she was vice president for a while. Suddenly I can't think of her name. The governor, current governor of California. There's
Newsom. Newsom.
Newsom, thank you. There's a senator from New Jersey who I think is very, very good.
What's his name?
Names are not coming to me today.
Is that Hakeem Jeffries?
No, I don't.
I think he's
No,
from New York.
He's
it's
from
a
New York.
senator
Oh.
from New York. He was the guy who did the 26-hour marathon.
Yes. Yeah, I don't remember the name either.
Yeah, I
Okay,
remember I know who you're talking about.
yeah. I think he's very good. I would expect that he would be on a short list. There's the governor of Michigan, who's pretty damn good. The lady. I don't think
Whitmer.
Hmm?
Whitmer.
Whitmer. Yeah, thank you. I don't think America is ready for a female president. I think that's why Trump won his second time. You had a black woman, and there was enough prejudice against all the different things that nobody voted for. Not a lot of people didn't vote for Trump. Many of them just stayed home. It was just enough to make a difference. I think the interesting question is, who's the Republican candidate?
I think J.D. Vance is a strong candidate.
Yeah.
I think Ron DeSantis maybe a candidate.
I think Rubio. I thought
And
Rubio was
Rubio.
Yeah,
Rubio
Rubio
is.
also. Any one of those three.
But I thought Trump did not like Vance to run
I
because he had said something against that.
Really?
well
I
again,
hadn't heard that.
I mean, various things get said interpreted by people in the press, and they say certain things, interpret what somebody else says. So I haven't heard anything that I think would actually be Trump opposing J.D. Vance.
What about Don Jr.?
No, I don't think he's a candidate. Not at this point.
He's making noises like he wants to be. I'm asking the question. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think people in the media may have thrown that around. That's where. Well, I thought this has been a very good discussion on many issues. I think doing it with three people. I know I had sent something to Bob the other day that I thought we needed to set up a time limit on how long somebody should be able to speak. I think and looking back on that, if it's three people or less, I think it's not a problem. I think once you get to four or more, it becomes an issue when you're only dealing with about an hour worth of time. Because all you need is one of the people to talk more than they should, and squeezes out the majority of other people. I think we did it. I think we did well by giving all of us, an opportunity to speak.
I understand what you're saying, and there's advantage to that. The downside is you miss out on a whole different viewpoint.
Yes.
And,
well, maybe you need to shuffle the people that are speaking. So you have instead of the three of us, you shuffle out one or two of us and bring in the backups or whatever you want to say.
But that will not be concurrent, unfortunately. It will be completely different topics.
It's eight. By the time I got is 8:59. So
okay.
We're not done yet. We're not done yet, right?
Speak.
Well,
You have 35 seconds.
Well, I think there's not much to speak, but I think as a summary, I think something United States needed to do in Iran long time overdue. That's what I would say.
Okay, I disagree. There are a lot of things that you should do, but you can't because the cost is too high.
Well, I said they had to do something. I didn't say this particular thing because we
Pers-
got to deal with it.
Personally, I'm surprised, and have been surprised almost from the beginning, that neither China nor Russia stepped in to help Iran. I wouldn't have been surprised if they got support.